But nevertheless, let's start out with SmackDown, shall we?
We shall.
Did you see this program?
I zipped through portions of it.
Yeah.
I saw some of Bray Wyatt, and then I was like, I don't know how much more of this I could take. And then there was a lot of women's segments, and I've always been a supporter of good women's wrestling, but I'm getting sick of all these women's segments because it just seems arbitrary at this point.
The qualifier is good. That's the qualifier. But I made it through the first girls' match last night live, and then I was so disheartened. I was going to watch it live because I've had a busy couple of days. We were recording early this morning, so I tried the opening contest. Here come the Brawling Brutes, and it's Sheamus with Butch and Ridge against Solo with Sammy and the Usos. And there's nothing the matter with that, but I had an observation right at the top of this program on the differences between the two companies' television shows. Up and down the card, the WWE talent, they're better trained, they're in better shape, they're more serious and professional. They don't do ridiculous amateur hour bullshit. But due to the presentation of all the people in the WWE programs, I'm barely interested in most of them. And it looks like the people in the arena agree with me when they're wrestling. I hear the crowd cheering or booing, but I don't see a lot of movement from them. It's funny how that happens. The WWE shows are 2 and 3 hours long, and it seems like the same 14 guys interacting with the same people on every show. Whereas on the AEW shows, there are 1 million guys, and the only ones you see all the time are the ones you don't want to see at all, and the ones you like you never see. So but you can't hardly turn away from some of the matches simply if you're watching to wait and see who the next person is that's going to fucking hurt themselves. So that's the difference. So Sheamus and Solo was a slobber knocker, stiff stuff. This is working stiff, not dangerous, what they were doing. Except for one thing I'll talk about. There was nothing wrong with the match, but the people were sitting on their hands, and I detected sweetened audio. I don't know what you thought about it, but it didn't sound right. But the one problem I had with this match, did you see the Samoan drop off the second rope?
I did.
Now, if anybody wants to go back, and every time I say, goddamn, they're doing the Samoan drop and they're not trapping the left arm, now you can go back and get a clear illustration of what I'm talking about. And I know it's a Samoan giving it. But goddamn, I used to watch the actual original Samoans that started doing it, and they all did it another way. Solo gets Sheamus up over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, and he's standing on the second rope, and he's going to fall back and do the Samoan drop, backwards off the turnbuckles. But here's the thing, and if anybody wants to go back and look at this, now you'll understand. Sheamus, when he's on his shoulders and the guy's standing up straight, that's fine. But when Solo starts falling backwards, Sheamus is going down sideways, not flat on his back. He's going down sideways. And his left arm is dangling, and he reached out and he landed on his left arm / elbow. And he sold it. And it probably didn't feel good. And he went along because they were talking about the announcers sold it as his bad shoulder, but it was clearly the elbow. But he could have broken that fucking arm. If you trap, when you're going back, if you trap the left arm with your left hand, then you can keep the guy turning in the proper way to go down flat of his back because it's fucking physics. I don't know what else to say. And we always taught trap the left arm. So nevertheless, it's an awkward bump to take without that because you can't hold on when you're up there on the guy's shoulder. There's nothing really to hold on to prevent that from happening unless he's helping you hold that arm to turn you. Otherwise, they had a fucking match. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, Sheamus hit a false finish. All the seconds got in a fight. The Usos turned the announce desk over on top of Ridge and Butch, trapping them underneath the desk. So that Solo then hit his finish on Sheamus, 1, 2, 3, and then all the heels beat Sheamus up while his backup guys were still stuck under the desk for like 2 minutes. They couldn't get out from under the desk. Match was fine, dangerous little spot. Finish was exciting, but the idea of let's just put a table on top of these two so they can't get up was a little ridiculous. Your thoughts?
It was all right. You know, I've said it on the show. I'm a little sick of Sheamus, but I thought it was a pretty good match. I like Solo. Notwithstanding what you said, which was right about the Samoan drop, I actually like him a lot. I think he's pretty good. It was a just fine opening match. Can't really complain too much. It is weird, to go back to your other point, when you pipe in the crowd noise on a live show versus a tape show, it's a weird difference.
Yeah.
It always sounds off, but when it's a live show and it's happening, I don't know, there's something really off about it.
And you can see people just kind of sitting there, right? But it's, anyway.
You hear like a roar. What is that?
Did you hear Michael Cole say professional wrestling? At one of the on-cameras at the desk, he said something, sports entertainment / professional wrestling, the world of both. So now they can say both at the same time. Do you think they're going to wean people off the sports entertainment thing?
It would be nice, but it's not like he said it. He says things in such an unnatural way. Like pro wrestling, like just nothing sounds fucking real from him. What we were just talking about with commentators. Michael Cole's the least effective commentator in wrestling history because nothing he says sounds genuine.
I don't know about least effective. Didn't they have that Mike Goldberg at one point?
Mike Goldberg, did they have Mike Goldberg?
Did they have, or who was the one guy they got?
Mike Adamle?
No, Mike Adamle. I'm sorry. They tried to get Mike Goldberg and got Mike Adamle.
If Mike Adamle had a 25-year run where they had him training the rest of their announce team and in charge of commentators, you could call him the least effective commentator in wrestling history. Instead, it's this idiot yelling at us nonstop in a fake manner.
All right, president of the Michael Cole fan club. Here's a question.
$5.
Is there a need for that's only in Arkansas for comedy shows. Is there a need for the term? Yeah, see, and everybody's going, what the fuck? We don't understand. You look at Twitter more. Is there a need for the term sports entertainment anymore? Because now professional wrestling is, Vince came up with sports entertainment because he felt that advertisers didn't want to be associated with professional wrestling because it was low-class entertainment. So that's why he changed the name of his professional wrestling to something else. Is there a need for that now when all the wrestling shows get sponsors? Because, you know, there's nothing on TV that does a decent number practically anymore. I mean, besides Domino's being pissed off about the bank-addicted drug robber and his pizza cutter, do sponsors even care about wrestling? And there's so many other things that are more unsavory in the world these days.
The people who want to reach a certain demographic are willing to look at who has a large audience and try to advertise with them. If wrestling exploded tomorrow and had a giant audience, we'd have a whole bunch of new advertisers probably come in. But with that said, you know what you're getting. No one says, oh, we're going to spend some of our ad budget on sports entertainment this quarter. Some of you may know it as wrestling. No one calls it that except WWE.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And they never have, but Vince insisted. But now that Vince is gone and they're changing things, do they need that term anymore? Because it's nonsense and it's fictitious and it was made up and it doesn't really exist. There's no such thing as sports entertainment.
No, the only thing that I guess prevents it from being wiped off the map would be the fact that you have someone like The Rock whose famous promo literally used that phrase.
And then the modern wrestlers will call belts titles now. So I'm wondering, even if they do get their vocabulary back straight in the WWE and call things by their actual legitimate names, they'll have to retrain the wrestlers. Because the wrestlers now, they have all new terminology based on what the WWE announcers call things, including title opportunity and instead of title shot and title instead of belt.
You know what else I heard Michael Cole say on this show? Talking about Michael Cole and talking about this opening match later in the show, he said hospital.
Oh, well, now you know Vince is gone. Vince is probably in the hospital over that. Anyway, we move on. You mentioned the Bray Wyatt interview in the back of the arena. And before you mention what you thought, which I'm kind of aware of, I will say again that this guy can talk, and he can talk convincingly, and he makes it sound like he's saying it. I don't know why they put the spooky background music behind the promo, because he's so real that made it fake. Like the old TNA sit-down interviews when they had the dramatic music underneath, and it just killed the whole fucking thing, because then all you could think of was, well, they're just being fake. Here's a guy talking real, but is there a fucking cassette player on, next to him in the bowels of the building, next to the goddamn janitor's closet? Where's the music coming from? Why do we need that? We don't. Just listen to the fucking guy. I don't have a clue what he said, but he sounded great saying it. He knows who you are and what you're trying to do. Explain to me, Brian, exactly what Bray Wyatt was saying in this promo.
You said it best. He's very convincing. He's very believable. I have no idea what he said. I have no idea what he's referring to or what he said. Nothing about this has pulled me in. This all seems like the same old Bray Wyatt. Maybe from before he had the demon mask and he was burning stuff, including himself. But I don't like this at all. The music put it over the top. Now he's just doing, again, these mystical promos. Even during the opening match, there was a moment they flashed that Bray Wyatt crap on the screen.
I forgot about that, yeah.
So it's just...
But the announcers didn't refer to it. It just happens.
Hey, look, I love Sherlock Holmes. I've read every Sherlock Holmes short story. I'm a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. And after you read it, sometimes you're like, man, I wish I could do some detective work. Wrestling fans want to be their little detectives and figure out these Bray Wyatt clues. I get it. It's fun. When I was a kid, Captain Crunch went missing. We had to try to find him with shit in his cereal. I
remember that. I was in my 20s at the time, I think, but I remember the commercials.
But the people who were holding on to this Bray Wyatt stuff like it's great for what it is, and what it is not professional wrestling. And that's my biggest problem with it. That's why he's my least favorite wrestler. None of this belongs on a wrestling show. And if anything else on this show's serious, and this guy's in a spooky basement with Halloween sounds, and then there's just various cut images into the show, like it's the young ones or something, I hate this. I really hate this. He's a great promo, unless you want to understand what the fuck he's talking about. But he's very convincing. You can look him in the eyes, and he'll tell you all this, and when you're done, you won't even know what to say, because you don't even know what he said. You have no idea what he said. You like him. You're giving him a chance. You have no idea what the hell he said. What did he say? He had like 3 minutes there to do a speech. What did he say?
Well, here's the thing. It's like Handsome Jimmy Valiant. His interviews, if you wrote them down and read them, didn't make a lick of sense, but the way he said it, it sounded like something he would say. At least Bray Wyatt doesn't sound like he's being told what to say. We just can't figure out what it is. But I'm thinking that if they take this guy with his talent for speaking and actually give him some kind of story to tell that makes sense and that you will understand what's going on, it might be interesting. So I'm still open here. I'm still open.
You see what's going to happen. There's going to be ghosts and goblins and mystical lightning and just people showing up dressed as weird fucking puppet animals. It's going to be all of this.
And then I'm going to take that opportunity to say, well, they fucking ran me off again.
But you see it coming. It's like us with AEW. We warned everyone. You see it coming. Don't deny. Tell me you see it coming. Do you see it coming? You know where this is going. You know where this is going.
I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but it looks like the headlight of the oncoming train.
If he's in the bowels of the building, this is the perfect way to do an AEW WWE crossover. He runs into Moxley.
He might still run into Mankind. Mankind might be still down in the bowels of the building. Every time we went to an arena in those days, we had to find the bowels first thing so they could light the bowels. You'd be surprised how many storage facilities I've been in major NBA arenas around the country.
Is that a favorite word of Vince's?
The bowels of the building. That is exactly. Is Mankind in the bowels this week? So Sammy and the Usos were pumping up Solo on his big victory, but basically Jay wants to fuck up Logan Paul later on tonight, but Sammy says Roman said don't do that, and Jay does not agree, so there's going to be issues between them later on in the program. I can feel it in my bones. And then here came Liv Morgan versus Cruella de Vil. And as I mentioned, I was watching live. I didn't have the benefit of fast forward, so I went to the kitchen and made something to eat. Because this minuscule little Barbie girl is presented as a lunatic, kicking the shit out of women twice her size is ludicrous. And so I came back with my ham and cheese sandwich, and both of them got counted out of the ring because Liv Morgan is bashing Cruella de Vil's head over and over into the steel steps, despite the fact that, if you did that to Cruella, she would probably have a brain aneurysm and die. And then Liv goes under the ring and starts grabbing chairs and is grabbing chairs from ringside and tossing them in the ring. And the crowd starts chanting, "We want tables," because furniture is more important than the wrestlers they are watching. I bet you that I could buy a table for about $65, $70, but one of those wrestlers costs several $100,000 a year. I think I should just buy the table and just find some goddamn homeless bums to fall through it. It'd be cheaper, and that's what the people want that are buying the tickets. They don't like the wrestlers. They just want people to fall through tables. So while Liv Morgan is going to every nook and cranny around ringside, trying to find chairs to throw in the ring, there's DeVille having to lay there staring at her, selling, wondering, are you ever coming back to me, you fucking bleach blonde bimbo?
Hey.
So it buried DeVille. She had to lay there and wait forever, and then she was still selling when here comes Dipshit and picks her up, and she pushed Cruella toward the ring, and Cruella had to roll in on her own while this vapid blonde twat is looking for more chairs.
Jesus Christ.
It's pissed me off.
I understand, but Jesus.
Yeah, well, it was so fucking phony and ridiculous. And then she gets back in the ring, and Cruella has to still sell so that the girl can sit her up on the turnbuckle with no resistance whatsoever, and then superplexed her off the top rope onto all the chairs. But Goof Girl, Liv Morgan, landed on the chairs too and turned over and laughed about it because she's extreme. So now the superplex bump onto steel chairs does not hurt a 100-pound girl. And that's when I left the program for the evening. We were about 45 minutes into the show. I couldn't take any more. I came back this morning where I could fast forward shit. What'd you think of this fiasco?
Well, first, let me just apologize to Liv Morgan, although you may not be a great wrestler.
She should apologize to me for her fucking work.
Well, they should apologize for putting her on TV. I don't blame her for taking all their money. But with that said, I fast forwarded and didn't watch this.
Okay, good. So here comes Brown Strongman. And he's in the ring to do a live promo, and he's calling out almost an MVP. And I'm thinking, oh God, this could be brutal, right? But MVP comes out alone, and he cuts a promo on old Strongman, and he did a good job putting Almost over if we hadn't already seen Almost and know that whatever he does is going to be rotten. And then, of course, there's the challenge from Braun. Why don't he try it at Crown Jewel? Because apparently the Saudis, they like social media celebrities, and they like big, flat-footed, fucking dull-witted fucking giants fighting with each other. So MVP accepted it.
They also like showgirls from Vegas, coincidentally enough.
Well, that's not limited to the Saudis. Many people like showgirls from Vegas.
Well, many people don't throw them on planes and bring them home. But anyway, go ahead.
All right. So Braun threatened MVP, but MVP said, well, wait a minute, I didn't come here alone. I didn't say Almost wasn't here. And they play the music, and here comes Almost. And he slobbers his way into the ring, and the face-off, he is a lot bigger than good old Braun.
I was shocked how much bigger than Braun he was, actually.
Yeah. Well, and then it came crashing down. Have you ever seen anybody miss a shove?
Well, I have now.
He went to shove him, and it was like a fake-out kind of deal where he went to shove him, but then Braun kind of jumped a little bit and almost didn't do it, kind of like he faked him out on it. Oh, shit, was I supposed to shove you then? And then when he does shove him, he almost missed shoving him. That was the most awkward-looking shove I've ever seen, and instantly, Braun Strowman, or Braun Strongman, or whatever his fucking name is, 6 foot whatever, 375 pounds, just turns around and just leaps through the ropes and lands on the floor. He pushed him through the ropes out to the floor, and then Braun gets up to his feet and starts laughing about it, and MVP grabs Almost and says, let's go, and they walk off. So that was it. That built to a shove and a laugh, and everybody just walked away. Your thoughts?
Why do you call him Braun Strowman?
Well, I thought his name was Braun Strongman, but then I thought it was Braun Strongman or Braun Strowman or whatever the fuck, and it just really doesn't make a lot of sense. He's very brawny, like paper towels.
It is Braun, although I do agree with you. It should have been Strongman, but we've talked about that before. You know, this is where the old Mark in me comes out. These two giants were there, and I was kind of intrigued. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. Almost looks a lot better in a suit than he did dressed like, he was outside the China Club. And those are my only thoughts.
Well, anyway,
and I like MVP. MVP is one of my favorite guys on the mic in WWE, so I'm just happy he's being used.
But what has he done to deserve this?
He was really good at his job for a couple of years, especially during the pandemic. So they punished him with breaking up his very successful and well-done faction and putting him with a stiff.
He Kansas City'd himself. He did a good job when he shouldn't have, and he's been penalized for it ever since. Then for the women's tag team title, or one of them, Damage Control, a.k.a. Kai and Sky, took on Shotzi and her partner Raquel Garcia Gonzalez Rodriguez El Santo. And the best part of the girls' matches, I think, is slow-moing how many times they almost kill each other. Because if there is a...
come on.
If there's a mishap that's going to happen in the WWE, it's probably going to be with the girls. But nevertheless, that was that. So then, did you see the Lucha Suits and Skid Row do taped promos about each other?
I did. I did see this.
Neither one of these groups needs to be speaking on television, do they?
Zelina Vega could speak. She's actually good at it.
Well, I said the groups.
Well, she's now tied in with the Lucha Suits. I thought you included her as one of the suits.
Well, she... All right, I may get a lawsuit, but I'll include her as one of the suits. But yeah, she can talk, and Top Dollar, he's convinced that he's doing something right, isn't he? You can just tell.
I don't.
Somebody has convinced him that he can work, he can talk. He doesn't look like a fucking refrigerator wearing a baseball cap. You know, somebody's convinced him.
B-Fab has a great look. They're lost without Swerve, and that was not apparent before they cut Hit Row, but they're dead without Swerve. And I think B-Fab, like I said, has a great look. Zelina Vega may lay claim to being one of the most underutilized talents in WWE because she was great at ringside. Remember, she made Andrade watchable there. She was great at ringside. Right. She's good on the mic. You know, she's tiny and she could do stuff. And as long as you don't sell it like her Hurricane Rana could kill you, it kind of looks cool seeing this tiny girl do these things at ringside. I just feel like she's constantly misused. We'll see how she does with the lucha suits. I will say a lot of listeners got in touch and said, please give them a chance. They're really good. And I was like, I thought we did give them a chance. But I don't know about them and Hit Row in a feud. It didn't end last week when they beat Hit Row. That wasn't the end of their one-match feud. I thought that was the end, but I guess not.
Oh, God. Anyway, Rey Mysterio had a singles match against Ludwig Kaiser. Because apparently next week we're going to get Rey and Gunther for the Intercontinental title. And this will be a test. Because I have all the respect in the world for Rey Mysterio. He's an innovator and a trailblazer. He's the guy. He's the exception to the rule. The guy that can get away with being that size because of his talent and his charisma and his superhero gimmick and whole 9 yards. And Gunther is the guy that I've said works with opponents based on how they are presented and it makes it logical somehow. He works with underneath guys one way, with top guys another way, with smaller guys one way and bigger guys another way, but he always works like Gunther. So let's see if somehow these two fantastic talents can put it together where Gunther can be 6'4" or whatever, and Rey can be 5'4", and the weight difference, and they can still be compelling, and I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, Rey Mysterio was wrestling Ludwig Kaiser, and I didn't look forward to that, and Rey Mysterio won.
It was all right. It was pretty good.
There's nothing wrong with it, but, right. You know.
But they've made Kaiser a jerk-off, though, on the main roster.
He's the introductory guy that does the nice introduction. He's like the
Virgil.
Usos.
He's Virgil.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the way Virgil would do the job before DiBiase got the match. That's what he is now.
Yeah, and honestly, the Usos are more valuable as Roman's gang, and Kaiser and Wilhelm are more valuable as Gunther's gang. I can't remember what the other guy's name is, so Kaiser and Wilhelm is now what it's going to be. And it's a fake Italian name. But you can't, they have to be presented as flunkies in the matches, or elsewise it doesn't work. As I've mentioned, the Usos are out there competitive against all the top tag teams, and then Roman's individual single opponent kicks the shit out of them. Same thing here. Kaiser and Wilhelm are presented as a tag team, supposed to be competitive, but when they are in the role of Gunther's flunkies, they get shit kicked out of them so Gunther can shine. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Or you can't have your Kate and Edith too. You rascal, you. Oh, the lady who...
Hey, the idea of Imperium versus the Bloodline's interesting. What if Sammy decides he wants to be a European and jumps to the other side? It would work.
Sammy European?
That's right.
I gotta put that into Harley's pee song.
What?
Every time I take Harley out, especially early in the morning, I have a pee song. Here we go, going out to pee. We get the funniest looks from every squirrel we meet. Hey, hey, we're a peeing. And people say we gotta pee. You're a precious little puppy. And you've got urine to pee. You don't sing to Swami?
A, I don't. B, that's not a song you wrote. That's the theme to the Monkees. But C, do you sing the same version of that every day? You made it seem like before that you have different...
Sometimes it changes up. Yeah, sometimes it changes. Sometimes I do a different tune. You never know.
So how are you going to add European Sammy to that?
European, Sammy. And here we go.
You know what? I completely missed it.
And Sammy's going to go out and pee. Yes, he European, and you got a lot of pee to pee. All right. So the main event on this program, again, was not a match. It's an interview. And, the one good thing about modern wrestling is if Jim Herd, that miserable 90-year-old sack of shit that should have been banished from this earth a long time ago, and I can't believe he hadn't turned to dust by now, but he used to hate interviews. And every time we would turn in the goddamn formats, he would take out the 3-minute live Ric Flair interview and make it a 30-second pre-tape, and then we'd change it back. He came from St. Louis, the only town in the world where they didn't do a lot of interviews. And he hated them. And he didn't want them in the start of the match, and he didn't want to, or start of the show, and he didn't want them at the finish of the show because he wanted a good wrestling bout. Well, I hope now that he sees that now the main event every week for the biggest wrestling promotion in the world is a goddamn interview just to make him miserable. But that's where we're at. They don't have an Austin versus Rock. They don't have a Triple H versus Mankind or Foley or whatever. They don't have stars that they can match on television in the main event of their flagship show, which this one, now everybody says Raw is the flagship show. To me, the flagship show is the one that most people watch. And SmackDown is what? Several 100,000 people ahead of Raw every week. So, and it's network television. So, but anyway, we have a main event interview with Logan Paul concerning the Crown Jewel event and Roman Reigns. And again, this guy can talk. He's taken the business more seriously than the guys that are in it. He's constructed us, whether it's his story or whether they gave it to him and he's fleshed it out, about nobody takes him seriously. They don't think he's going to beat Roman Reigns, but what if he gets one lucky shot? They said he couldn't do this. They said he couldn't do that. Look where he is now. He seems serious and motivated, and he's got personality. And it's not just scripted bullshit or a monotone, interesting delivery like Ronda Rousey has been, where she's just like in a trance and don't give a shit. So I think this guy's going to do very well. Also, we've seen before, he takes the physical part seriously too, and he's been training. And of course, he's training with Michaels. I'm glad he wasn't training with Michaels 20 years ago. He'd fucking show up at the Crown Jewel, hold up the Crown Prince for more money, and go in the ring pilled up so when his somas kicked in, he could go to the finish. But hopefully Michaels is teaching other lessons now. And so with creating that doubt that he might actually win the thing, and then we've seen some of the other screwy finishes, that they've done lately, so people may think, they might do it. What the fuck? I'm not upset about this guy being a celebrity getting into wrestling with the way that he's treated it, as I'm more offended by people like fucking Pockets or Jelly or some of these wastes of flesh that are given free rides in the business and don't appreciate it. So I'm not against Logan Paul, and I want to see what's going to happen. But in the meantime, as soon as he was about finished, here came Jey Uso and attacks him from behind and is just kicking the teetotal shit out of him. And here comes Sami Zayn out, gets up on the apron, is like, no, Roman doesn't want this. Go to the back, get out of the ring. He distracts Jey long enough that by the time Jey turns around and goes back to Logan Paul, Logan ducks him and knocks him out with one lucky shot. Boom goes the dynamite, and down goes Jey, colder than a banker's heart. And Logan walks off and leaves him and tells Sami, thank you very much. And that's what it needed to be. I don't know if that's the most if that's the most exciting thing you can put on your television show, that you've got to end up the night with it, that's maybe a problem. But that was what this segment needed to be, and we'll see what happens at the crown jewel.
We shall see, indeed. I like Logan Paul a lot. I wish he was on the show more, and I have to say, I'm really enjoying Jey Uso. Whatever they're giving Jey Uso, he's knocking it out of the park right now. He's doing great.
Well, yeah, he and Sammy, obviously, but they both play off each other so well. And then you got Solo doing his own thing, and Jimmy kind of being the guy that gets along with everybody, and Roman and Heyman being the manipulators. I like the group, and it's entertaining to watch them. But they got to be careful, again, that they don't rely on that too much, because then these guys are going to be overexposed. And but it's hard not to go to the only people you got that are actually fun to watch on television when you're doing television.
Here's the issue, though. I mean, we've been watching now Raw and SmackDown. After Logan Paul, and who knows what they're going to do. They're booking us for Saudi Arabia, so I don't know if they're bringing it back in a few months for the Royal Rumble for a big rematch or anything. But beyond that, where do you go with Roman and the Bloodline? Who are you going to have him work with?
Whew. That would be interesting, because, Brock's back, but we've done that numerous times.
And we're doing Brock versus Lashley now.
Brock and Lashley now. Drew McIntyre's been done with Roman.
That's right. Cody.
It's not time yet. He's going to be out till at least January, right?
Well, technically, I think they said he's going to be out past January. It was my thought that they're going to get him back for the Royal Rumble. But if there was ever anything to make them bring Brandy in, Cody and Brandy versus the Bloodline is money. And let
what?
Let Brandy cut promos against Heyman. I'm telling you, it'll be good.
No.
They can ride the bus.
They all need to be teetotalers. It needs to be a brandy-free zone.
Oh, come on. It's got to be something to do with her. But anyway.
Only if the Bloodline brings in Jane Cargill.
How about Cody brings in Brandy and the Bloodline brings in Jacob Fatu?
That would, if, in all seriousness, and Brandy aside, set down your snifter, pal. If they brought Jacob Fatu in, that would be big money.
Right.
Because here's the only thing about Solo that doesn't fit the suit, doesn't fit the picture, is he's short and he's normal looking. For a Samoan fella, he doesn't look like a psychopath. He doesn't look like somebody that would, even though Samoans would, bite your carotid artery. Jacob Fatu's got more body weight. He's got the hair. He's got the wild, crazy eyes. He looks like a Samoan Pampiro Firpo. And from what I've seen, his work and natural athletic ability is, unfortunately, far ahead of Solo. So I'm not diminishing or knocking Solo. He's doing a great job. But if you wanted a Samoan enforcer, a psychopathic maniac that you could believe would go off and do some damage to people, and it can do some amazing shit visually and looks the part. I mean, at this point, is it a criminal record in the background, or is it his age? He's gone too far, or now do they just not want to admit that they've made a tragic mistake? And somebody ought to buy this fucking guy away from Court Bauer while he's still able to get in the ring and do what he does, and put him on a main stage, because you don't find people that do this shit or look like that on a regular basis.
There are other people with criminal records who work there, so that shouldn't be a disqualifier. Hey, you want to do some fantasy booking and you want to really talk about why Tony Khan wants a non-compete?
Sure.
CM Punk wins the Royal Rumble. Punk Roman Reigns WrestleMania. How big would that be?
Boom goes the dynamite. Then you, again, right there, that they could generate enough money that night if they did that at WrestleMania to pay Punk's contract for 3 years to just do that match, and they would be able to rub it in Tony's face.
You have a good story there. Heyman used to manage Punk years ago. He was the first guy, I think, really after Brock that he managed was Punk.
Yeah.
And all these years later, he has a new love, Roman Reigns. Be easy to play this up, be easy to do this, and you get a big gate in Chicago. So, but I mean, that's the problem. There aren't too many guys we could think of. I mean, Randy Orton, we haven't heard any sign that he's coming back, and I don't know if he's the answer for this. But who does Roman and the Bloodline work with? We've already seen Roman and Jey Uso. Remember, that's how this all really started a few years ago. I don't want to see him and Bray Wyatt, and it sounds like Bray Wyatt's going to feud with himself. So I really don't know. What would you do with Roman right now?
If a guy has a feud with himself, who gets the winner's purse when they have the match?
The attorney.
There you go. I mean, I don't know, because they don't have a lot of options, because there's not a lot of names left in the business that mean anything, because none have been created over the last 10 years.
Would you elevate a Braun Breaker for this?
But it's still so soon, because he's got all the tools and he's got all the potential, and I'd hate to sidetrack him or make it harder for him later on just to rush him now. At worst, there may be backlash from fans, or he just might not be ready to look as impressive as he has looked in that position with that kind of spotlight on him. I think I'd be rushing it just a bit.
Do you agree it has to be someone new, not someone that Roman's worked with already? Because it seems like a lot of these guys, as you mentioned, he's worked with Brock, Drew McIntyre, he's worked with a lot of them a lot.
Well, and you can always have rematches, and especially shit that the people liked to begin with, but you can't just do it constantly. It can't just be recycle. And that may be the problem, is there's not only nobody there that he hasn't worked with that would mean anything, but also there's nobody anywhere else out there that they could just bring right in and would mean something, unless they put some time and effort into building that person, if they were able to get them contractually. So, good luck.
Yeah, they may stall until Cody can come back, because that may be their only hope right now, to get Roman a main event opponent that's fresh.
And then if they're going to do, if it's ever going to happen, The Rock and Roman Reigns, it would have to be next year at WrestleMania, right? Because nobody's getting any younger, and they're in Los Angeles, and by the next year, the bloom may be off the rose.
You would think so, because of the Los Angeles end of it. I guess it all depends on what The Rock is currently doing. He's now a producer on his own films. He knows his schedule. Is he blocking out time to train for WrestleMania, work WrestleMania, and then get surgery afterwards for whatever he's going to get hurt? Because he's going to get hurt. No, every one of these guys comes back. Even if they have a great match, they're going to get hurt. It happens every time. It's the style they're working. It's going from not wrestling to all of a sudden wrestling.
With The Rock and Reigns, I don't think they would have to do anything that would be exceptionally dangerous to still get the point across. And they're both good.
I'm saying that I think, hypothetically, The Rock may be so jacked up on some stuff that he'll tear a muscle doing something.
Oh, come on.
I'm not even joking. I think that's exactly what will happen if The Rock has a comeback match. We will hear about him getting surgery within a month for some sort of damage. It won't be serious, but he's going to get hurt. They all do. Everyone who comes back gets hurt.
Well, in that case, I'm going away again. I'm not coming back anymore. Speaking of going away and coming back, something that happens every day over at the Wrestling News. What's going on these days in the Arcadian Vanguard world?
Perhaps you slept through SmackDown. Perhaps you missed Raw, Dynamite, Rampage, Impact, whatever it may be. Perhaps you want to know in the morning, what happened overnight? Is everyone alive? Has anyone died? What are the ratings? Who's on the roster? What's going on in wrestling? There's now a source for wrestling news with no opinion, no conjecture, not getting worked by people, actual news, and that, of course, is The Wrestling News. Go to thewrestlingnews.com or look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Free, daily, morning wrestling newscast covering the entire world of professional wrestling. It doesn't go very long. A lot of people have it with their coffee. You too can enjoy The Wrestling News each and every morning. Once again, thewrestlingnews.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed already.
What's the title of that program again?
The Wrestling News at the Wrestling
I have it every morning with my Sprite Zero.
with your Sprite Zero. Oh, that's right, you don't like coffee. I apologize for referencing coffee there, but a few other notes here on the show. Want to make mention of the latest episode of Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon, his guest, John McAdam, of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Check that out today at suawpod.com, or look for Shut Up and Wrestle with Brian Solomon wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Also want to make mention for patrons of Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry at patreon.com/Baldwin and Barry. The boys interview the widow of Frenchie Bernard. Hear that today, all about life on Andre's Ranch. Once again, patreon.com/Baldwin and Barry. That's right, Jackie. Did you know her?
Very nice lady. Met her a couple times.
Also want to make mention of the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership!
I knew you'd get it in there sooner or later.
I was wondering if you hit the wrong button. I usually don't get such a pleasant response, but go through the archive today. There it is, 605pod.com. You brought my whole tone down. 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership.